He only wanted hot tea and 10 minutes of silence. She only wanted to finish her shift. But when he spoke, everyone froze, because the hotel maid with the quiet smile answered him back in a language no one expected. Dash dash dash. The lobby of the Grand Everly gleamed like a polished mirror. Marble floors, brass rails, chandeliers that dropped warm light like honey. The conference had dragged for hours, and cameras had followed the visiting statesman since sunrise. Security formed a wall. Staff moved like metronomes. Guests whispered. And in the middle of it, at a low table set with a silver teapot, a man in a deep blue suit pressed 2 fingers to his temple and said, in a soft voice that trembled just enough to betray the weight he carried, "If I could have tea. Just tea, please." No one moved. The entourage traded glances. The protocol officer frowned at a menu. Translators shuffled their pages, whispering about flavors and ceremonial steps and whether the tea should be green or black or oolong. The man's question had been simple. It became complicated anyway, as simple things often do when power steps into a room. Amara came from the service corridor carrying a tray, the scent of cardamom clinging to her sleeves. Her gray uniform was neat, the name badge pinned exactly straight. She had just turned 23 that week, and the gift she gave herself was a promise. Keep the job, keep the apartment, keep moving. The world was loud, but she knew the quiet ways to survive it. She'd seen the man arrive earlier. How his shoulders held a nation, how the cameras chased him, how his eyes found windows and stayed there as if he missed a horizon only he could remember. Now he looked tired in a human way. Not the heroic kind of tired that speeches solve, but the bone-deep kind that asks for tea. Amara set down the tray on the side table. She was about to step back when she heard the underbreath phrase he murmured next. Not in the conference language, not in the English everyone expected, but in a small mountain dialect from the north coast of his country. It was the sort of phrase you only say to family. "Miomoni saranghan chiyongcha," the kind my mother loved. His mouth softened on the last word as if he could taste the memory. Amara's hand tightened around the teapot handle. That dialect was the one she'd picked up from her neighbor on the 3rd floor, Ms. Un, who watched over Amara when she first moved in. Ms. Un taught her to sew a missing button and how to steam dumplings without breaking the skins. She taught her the word for tired from carrying too much, and the different word for tired from not being seen. In the hush of the hallway, over laundry baskets and shared recipes, a maid from East Liberty learned a sliver of a language from a widow who watered plants on the fire escape. Amara understood him. She looked up. The cameras were ready for a slip, a misstep, a headline. The protocol chief was gearing up to correct the request with something expensive. The statesman, Mr. Han to the world, Seojan to his mother, rubbed the bridge of his nose the way people do when memories press too hard. Amara stepped forward. "Chiyongcha, sir?" she asked, letting the mountain vowels ride the word. "The kind your mother brewed." The air shifted. The security detail straightened. A man in a khaki suit, mid-stride, turned with his mouth open in a cartoon O. A few phones tilted higher. Somewhere, a chandelier hummed. Mr. Han looked up as if someone had called his given name from far away. His eyes didn't widen dramatically. They simply cleared, like glass wiped clean. "You understand me," he said, this time in careful English. "I do." She felt the heat rise to her ears. A little. Enough for tea. There are moments when rooms tip. The Grand Everly lobby had been tipped all day by politics, speeches, and the small performances of important people. Now the weight shifted again, toward a girl in gray with steady hands and a man who remembered his mother's kitchen. "Please," he said, "if that's possible." Amara nodded and set to work. She wiped the pot again even though it already shone. She warmed it with a little hot water, swirled, poured it out, measured the leaves with the eye of someone who'd learned from a woman who insisted that care wasn't about measuring cups, but about attention. She poured the water slowly. Not because it looked elegant, though it did, but because leaves do their best when they are introduced to heat the way people want to be introduced to truth, with respect. He watched. The entourage shuffled, whispering into earpieces. The lobby remembered it was a lobby and tried to breathe. A hotel manager took 3 steps forward and then, wisely, 3 steps back. When Amara finished, she set the cup in front of him and waited. Mr. Han lifted it with both hands, the way his mother had taught him, a gesture that says, "I honor the one who made this." He inhaled. The steam curled at his glasses, his eyelids fluttered. He took 1 sip. Tears ran, not the kind you hide but the kind that arrive without permission when a single sense unlocks a door you thought was sealed. He didn't sob. He smiled. "This is it," he whispered. "This is home." The man in khaki finally found his voice. "Wait. You understand him." His tone wasn't cruel, just startled. Some people are their best selves a few seconds late. The red circle of attention had already settled on him in every phone screen. A dozen memos would be written about his expression by the evening. Amara didn't turn. She wasn't performing. She just said, soft but clear, "I understand what it feels like to be far from the person who made your favorite tea." Something happened then that no scheduler could have planned. The room exhaled. The cameras, still recording, forgot to hunt for scandal and rested, for once, on the miracle of a cup. The story could have ended there, as a sweet viral clip, the maid who spoke to the minister in his mother's dialect, the tea that made him cry, the lobby that applauded. But real kindness is rarely a single scene. It is a river. One bend shows, the rest runs out of sight. The afternoon stormed on. Meetings, statements, a tense press briefing. Amara went back to work. She stacked fresh linens, checked smoke detectors, answered calls about pillows that were too soft or too firm. The tea moment followed her like a warm breeze through cold halls. Housekeeping wore whispers like jewelry. "Was that you?" He really cried. "Did he tip?" She smiled, nodded, said little. She took the service elevator to floors no camera ever bothered to climb. Just before her shift ended, the concierge called through the radio, "Amara, VIP lounge. There's a request for you." Her stomach dipped. She smoothed her apron and went. The VIP lounge was quieter than the lobby, all muted carpet and green plants. Mr. Han stood by the windows, hands in his pockets, looking smaller without the podium and lights. When he saw her, he straightened. The room emptied with the speed of trained staff who knew when to become walls. "Miss Amara," he said. He'd taken the time to learn her name. "Thank you for earlier. You did something no one else could do." She almost said anyone could have. But the truth was, not everyone does. "You're welcome, sir." She folded her hands to keep them from fidgeting. "I'm glad it helped." He nodded at the tray she carried out of habit. "Is that more tea?" "It is." She smiled. "The leaves have one more good brew in them." He laughed, a soft, surprised sound. "That's exactly what my mother used to say." They sat, not across a negotiation table, not in rows, but at the same low coffee table that made everyone the same height. Amara poured. Mr. Han watched the steam. "May I ask," he said carefully, "how you learned that dialect?" "It is out of fashion, even at home. My neighbor taught me," she said. Ms. She says her village clings to old words because they feel like hands. I liked that idea. Amara hesitated. When I moved here, I had 2 jobs and a backpack. She left soup by my door. When I couldn't sleep, she told stories about a river you can hear at night. After my mom died, her throat pinched. The sentence had to walk barefoot over broken glass. After my mom died, Ms. Un let me sit on her fire escape. She said grief is a language, too, and it takes time to get fluent. The minister's gaze softened. I'm sorry, he said. About your mother. Me too. She poured his cup. I try to make things the way she did. It makes the day make sense. He held the cup. You know, I could not cry at the funeral. Not one tear. But today, he smiled at the table. Today a stranger made it safe. They drank in companionable quiet. Words are heavy. Sometimes you share them best by putting them down together. A knock at the door. The protocol chief slipped in, flanked by 2 aides. Minister Han. The evening meeting with the Trade Council. Mr. Han lifted a hand, polite but final. 5 minutes. The aides melted back into the hallway. He looked at Amara, something like decision in his eyes. May I ask one more thing? Not for cameras. For me, of course. He shifted, suddenly shy. When I was a child, my mother would, he chuckled, embarrassed. This will sound silly. Most good things do, Amara said. She would tap the bottom of the cup 3 times with her finger. A small habit, a promise that the day would behave. I did not realize until today how much I miss that sound. He tapped the table instead, gentle. Talk, talk, talk. Without speaking, Amara reached out and, with permission in her eyes, tapped the cup. Talk, talk, talk. The way you might knock on a friend's door because you know they're home. Mr. Han closed his eyes. The room turned into a kitchen no journalist had ever seen. Thank you, he said, voice rough, for hearing me in my own language, and the one underneath. Dash dash dash. By the next morning, the clip had found its way online. Not the private tapping, but the lobby moment, the startled aide, the smile, the soft question, you understand me. It wasn't scandal, it was something rarer. A proof that some gaps can close in one sentence. Comments poured in. Some were flippant. Most were kind. People tagged their mothers. Someone posted a photo of a chipped teacup and wrote, I didn't know I missed this until now. The hotel sent an email reminding staff about social media professionalism. They also, quietly, gave Amara an extra day off that she couldn't afford to take. She didn't. Rent didn't care about virality. On day 3, when the conference wrapped, a black sedan idled at the hotel's curb. Mr. Han stood by it, tireless, looking like a man between storms. He gestured to the concierge. Is Miss Amara on shift? She was, pushing a cart with tiny soaps that lined up like obedient soldiers. The concierge found her. She arrived at the curb with her sleeves rolled up and a surprised crease between her eyebrows. Mr. Han bowed slightly. I'm leaving for the airport, he said. I would like to say goodbye to someone who remembered my mother with me. She felt everyone watching. The valets with their lift and swing grace, the bellman who'd seen celebrities cry behind potted plants, the tourists who had no idea what they were witnessing but knew it mattered. Amara nodded. Goodbye, sir. Safe travels. He paused, then added, would you do me the honor of accepting a small gift? Please. No cameras, no fuss. Just gratitude. He handed her a wrapped parcel, lightweight and carefully taped. She wanted to refuse. The hotel manual in her head shouted policy. But something in his expression, humble, almost boyish, unbuttoned her hesitation. Okay, she said softly. Thank you. The sedan pulled away. It would be a long flight with endless clouds and meetings on the other side. But for a few minutes on the curb of a city far from the coast of his childhood, the minister had been nothing grander or smaller than a son. In the housekeeping locker room, Amara opened the parcel. Inside was a teacup, not fancy, no gold rim, no hotel gift shop gloss. White porcelain with a tiny blue river painted around the lip, the kind that looks like someone tried to hold a horizon in their hands. Under it, a note in careful English and then in the old dialect. For Amara, who brewed home for a stranger. When life gets loud, tap 3 times. She didn't cry at first. Then she did, scrubbing her eyes with the heel of her hand, laughing at herself and not at all. She tapped the cup. Talk, 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 and the locker room, with its tin lockers and smell of starch, softened into someplace kind. If the story were only about tea, it would be lovely and small. But seeds don't ask your permission to sprout. What happened next grew not because of money or policy or announcements, but because of an old woman watering plants on a fire escape and a young woman who remembered what she'd learned there. A week later, Amara knocked on Ms. Un's door 3 flights up. The older woman opened it in her house sweater and slipper socks, hair in a bun that meant business. "You never visit at this hour unless a recipe failed," she said, one eyebrow up. Amara grinned and lifted the cup. "I brought something. They brewed tea." Amara told the lobby story halfway through, then had to tell it again because Ms. Un kept saying, I, and interrupting to ask whether the man's suit was properly tailored, it was, and whether the water had been too hot, it wasn't. When Amara finished, Ms. Un put her hand over the cup and blinked faster than she liked to. "Your mother would have liked that," she said. "I think so," Amara replied. "I hope so." They sat by the window with the plants. Far below, the city clattered. Above, the sky pretended to be calm. "Do you remember when you first moved in?" Ms. Un asked suddenly. "You were so quiet I thought you were allergic to talking. You watched how I steeped the leaves. You never once asked for sugar. I was afraid if I put sugar in, I'd miss the real taste," Amara said. Ms. Un nodded as if that answered something larger. "Teach, then," she said. "Teach what?" "What you know." She tapped the cup. "Talk, talk, talk. Tea is a way of paying attention. People don't know how to do that anymore. Teach them." "Who would learn from me?" Amara laughed. "I'm just." "Don't say just." The older woman's voice sharpened. "The world builds walls with that word." So Amara put a paper on the community board in the lobby of her building. Tea hour. Free. Thursday nights. Learn to make something warm for yourself. No sugar necessary. She expected 3 people. At the first session, 12 showed up. A delivery driver with night shifts, a nurse with a phobia of silence, a teenager who missed his grandfather, a line cook whose hands never stopped moving. They weren't there for tea. They were there for permission to slow down. Amara taught them to warm the pot, to swirl, to wait. She taught them the mountain word for tired from carrying too much. She taught them to tap the cup 3 times, to say hello to themselves. Some rolled their eyes. Most grinned like children surprised by kindness. They told stories. They cried a little. They left lighter. Word spread. Other buildings asked her to come. A librarian offered a back room for a Saturday workshop. A community center asked whether she could bring small cups so the kids wouldn't burn their tongues. Amara made a simple rule. 1 person brings the leaves, 1 person brings the water, 1 person tells a story, everyone cleans up. It became a ceremony of shared work. One night, a man lingered after class. He wore a suit that tried too hard to look expensive. I'm from a fundraiser, he said, then added quickly, a good one, I promise. We help immigrant elders who are isolated. Would you ever do what you do for them? For free? Amara asked, because surviving had taught her to count. He nodded. We pay a small stipend. More importantly, we handle the rides. She tried to pretend to think about it. Yes, she said, without pretending very well. That winter, in a fluorescent-lit community room with rickety chairs and a heater that wheezed like an asthmatic dragon, Amara watched a circle of elders teach her new things. The right way to smack a stubborn doe, the right proverb for a stubborn son, the best song for a stubborn sadness. They didn't always share a language. It didn't matter. The tea translated. Someone filmed a session. It landed online the way seeds land on unexpected soil. Comments bloomed. Not all kind, not all cruel, just human. A few weeks after, a familiar black sedan returned to the Grand Everly's curb, though there was no conference that day. Mr. Hahn stepped out with his security and a box tied with string. He looked around as if listening for a sound only he knew to expect. The concierge, who had learned the taste of good timing, called Amara from the back office where she was helping reorganize the lost and found. They met in the lobby again, though it was quieter now. He held up the box. I watched your classes, he said. I hope that isn't strange. It's okay, Amara said. It belongs to everyone now. He smiled and offered the box. This is from my mother's village. Leaves, blended by an old friend. They taste like the hills. Amara took them as if they were breakable and precious. I'll brew them for the elders, she said. Please do. He hesitated. And one more thing. I am setting up a small fund. Not with my name on it, to support programs that teach attention. Music, cooking, tea. Your classes would qualify. She blinked. Why me? Because you taught me what my position sometimes makes me forget. The shortest road between people is the one that goes through something they both love. He looked almost apologetic. This will bring you attention you might not want. She laughed. I'm a hotel maid. Attention is a myth and a mop. He grinned, relieved. Then it's settled. They shook hands. Cameras eventually found them. Cameras find everything. But the smallest parts of that moment, the pressure of a grateful hand, the way a lobby can feel like a kitchen, belong to them. The Grand Everly changed in little ways after that. The bellman learned how to say good morning in 3 dialects apiece. The concierge kept a pot and 2 cups behind the desk for guests who arrived with the kind of eyes that meant later won't do. The khaki suit aide, whose shocked face had been memed across platforms, started volunteering on Thursdays, carrying folding chairs up narrow flights of stairs with a grin and a self-deprecating joke that somehow never got old. One evening, Amara finished to class and walked home alone. Snow fell in that hush that makes a city feel like it's listening. She passed store windows where mannequins posed in clothes no one wears to do ordinary miracles. She turned the corner and found Ms. Un sitting on the fire escape, wrapped in a blanket, 2 mugs steaming beside her like friendly ghosts. You're late, Ms. Un said. The rice is overcooked. I like it that way, Amara lied. They sat, legs bumping like punctuation marks. The city breathed below. Above, the moon punched through a cloud and then hid, shy. Do you ever miss her? Amara asked. She meant her own mother, and Ms. Un's, and all the women who had taught them to turn water into comfort. Every day, Ms. Un said. But missing is how I know the love was real. Amara tapped her mug. Talk, talk, talk. Then we're fluent, she said. They drank. Somewhere, across an ocean of air and schedules, a statesman closed his eyes on a plane and, before sleep, tapped the plastic cup the same way, smiling at a memory he hadn't expected to keep. Months later, Amara stood in a rehearsal hall at a community center that used to be a factory. The fund, small but stubborn, had grown through matching donations and neighborhood bake sales that were really just excuses to sit together. Tonight, the hall was strung with paper lanterns. Kids chased each other between chairs. Elders reclaimed dances their knees almost remembered. A local quartet rehearsed a song that sounded like rain agreeing to fall. At the back of the room, a new sign hung on the wall, the listening table. People who sat there were not allowed to check their phones. They could talk or not talk. They had to pour tea for someone else before pouring it for themselves. The rules weren't strict. The effect was, a young woman approached Amara, twisting a bracelet around her wrist like she was trying to dial courage. "I'm no good at talking to people," she blurted. "But I saw your video. My mom, she died last year. I don't know how to carry that without dropping everything else." Amara handed her a cup. "Hold this," she said. "Not forever. For now." They stood together in the hum of the hall. The woman took a sip and laughed in surprise. "It tastes like the first day after you clean your room." "That's a good taste," Amara said. "Yeah." The woman wiped a tear and didn't apologize for it. "Teach me to make it." "Of course," Amara said. "That's the whole point." Behind them, a small boy banged a spoon on a metal chair. The rhythm echoed up into the rafters. "Talk, talk, talk," and returned as something like music. Amara closed her eyes and pictured a kitchen she didn't know, a mountain village that taught its children to honor what warms them, a hotel lobby that had belonged to the world for 10 minutes, and a mother who would have been glad her daughter learned how to turn a simple request into a door. She opened her eyes to the room. "All right," she called, clapping once. "Hot's hot. Who's ready to listen?" Hands lifted. Conversations softened. A story that had started with a tired man asking for tea kept moving outward, not in headlines, but in homes, in quiet rooms where people tapped their cups and remembered that being understood is the oldest comfort we have.